Hey everyone, how's everybody doing? All my friends are here. Okay, can you all hear me and see me? Cool. Okay, so some people are coming from, if I recognize the names, from the Netherlands, from Europe. All right, cool. Hey guys, how are you doing in this crazy, crazy time? Before I begin, just a quick announcement. The movie is doing amazing. I can't believe what's going to happen with that, but I'll let you know more next time. And what I wanted to say is on Wednesdays, I'm going to be helping you guys process some whatever's coming up for you during this time. So, so we're not doing a full session, but we are processing some whatever is happening, the feelings that are coming up. So look for that notice. It's going to be Wednesday, every Wednesday. So what I'm going to do, yes. Because these are weird times, aren't they? It's like, what is going on? So last time we talked a little bit about what I feel is happening and where I see this going. And just a little reminder, I feel like everything that's happening has set a new trajectory to what is yet to come. It's almost like there is no turning back from here. There's no going back to normal. They keep telling us we can go back to normal, but what is normal after this? It's almost like the damage has already been done because all of this information that has been fed, that are feeding us, has already kind of changed our perspective on so many things. And so because of that, I feel like even when we go back to whatever normal, it's going to be a completely new normal. And so let's talk about that. And because there's so many different areas to get into, I'm just going to let you ask questions. So I'm going to talk for a little bit, but you can go ahead and type your questions, and Michael's going to facilitate like we did last time. So in case I miss a subject or something, then we can just go ahead and answer your questions, okay? So talking about the weirdness first, always the weird stuff first, and then we'll get to the positive. So I feel that because of everything that is happening, there is so much confusing information. It is obviously government lacking information, truth, and also misdirection. I feel like we keep getting conflicting information all the time. But like I said last time, it's a good thing because that it is so obvious, it's so much in our face, that this makes us stop and say, wait, I'm not buying this because you just said something else. And this other guy told us that the opposite. And so this is good because it makes you more empowered and wanting to step back and kind of decide for yourself, you know, if it makes sense, if it sounds true or not. So to me, this is all very positive when all of this information is all coming at the same time. But also, I feel that there's a bigger agenda, like we've been talking. I feel it's very fear-based. It is for the purpose of more separation, more isolation, so that if we are not together, they make us think we're together, but in our isolation, then we become supposedly weaker. And so if you are isolated in your home, and it's also messing in your head. I mean, is it not messing in your head? Is it not messing with your kind of moods and your emotions? Stuff is coming up for you, right? And so when this happens, it's almost like you lose this strength And so when this happens, then whoever has a bigger agenda, whoever has this globalization type of agenda for control, is going to take advantage of that. So to me, this is so obvious. I mean, who's really buying this? You know, so this is not to say that there isn't a real virus. There is a real virus. It is affecting people. It is killing people. It's making people sick. But the agendas are just so clearly obvious. Separation, isolation, fear. And so with that, of course, they want us to all become part of that bigger system. So the vaccine, a normal vaccine that normally takes years and years to develop, all of a sudden is now being developed in months. So they're saying now by the end of the year, we should have a vaccine. And also with this isolation, people are saying, no, wait, this is not even making sense. So there's a lot of social unrest. I don't know about different countries. You guys can share if you like. But in the US, people are saying, we're not doing that anymore. And so it's not just groups revolting, so to speak, but also eventually states. And so think about that. If an entire state starts to want to act differently, then that leads to even more separation. Like from a legal perspective, from a political perspective, this is huge. This is a huge amount of disruption on a political level, on all, of course, the economy. And so, but this kind of also breaks down more and more the systems. And so, you know, when this is, as we are witnessing and watching all this happen, we think it's the end of the world. We think that that whatever system we knew is literally crumbling, which it is. But to me, that is the good news, because the system is not really working. The system is actually corrupt. So you want these systems to break down. But the way it is breaking down, you know, is a little bit too chaotic, maybe scary. And that's what I'm here to kind of talk to you about. And so when the states, the communities, then different social groups, and then states starts to separate from each other. So then, of course, you have less freedom, because then you can't cross from one place to another. The boundaries come up. And so also with the vaccine thing, you have now more and more laws. Are we going to be required to be tested, to be vaccinated, to be this and that? So more and more restriction on the individual. And so when this happens, you know, you kind of have to figure it out on your own. Clearly, we have no leadership or trust in the leadership at this point. I mean, I don't know about you, but when you witness all of this confusing information and you know, the fact that they are confused, not just that they're giving us confusing information, it makes you not trust. And if you don't trust, then the only person that you can trust is yourself or your immediate community. And so we talked about that. And so because of this, you have to start looking out for yourself to figure out where you want to end up and how you want to survive, you know, and to navigate through all of this. And so, and all of a sudden, I don't know about you guys, but a few days ago, like, you know, we have this whole global crisis going on, and all of a sudden the Pentagon thinks that it is the right time to be talking about UFOs. So, okay, so we are in the middle of, you know, people losing jobs. The economy is completely flattened. People are scared. People are confused. People are stuck. People are bored. People are going nuts. People are drinking more and taking more drugs because of this trauma that is actually happening. And the Pentagon decides that, oh, we should tell the world that UFOs are real. Have you guys seen this footage? Every mainstream media is talking about it. The BBC, to the Fox News, to ABC, and everything else in between. So mainstream media decides in the middle of this global crisis that it's time to talk about UFOs. Do you find that strange? I don't know. I find the timing extremely strange. And so, but if you look at the bigger picture, then it makes perfect sense. Now we made people scared enough to want to be isolated. We made people scared enough to want to be vaccinated. Let's create another threat, you know, something that is so beyond the human population that they still are going to need and require the government protection, or what we tell them is good for them. To me, that's how I see it. Please share your perception on this and your perspective on this. But to me, I feel that, you know, somebody at the Pentagon or that whole kind of group has been in a way forced. It's almost like, what else, you know, can we inject as part of this bigger picture? You know, what kind of story can we start to talk about, so to continue with this global planetary fear? And so that's kind of what I see, because I talked about waves, and I'm not talking about just the virus, like now it's first wave, it's a peak, and then it's another peak. I'm not talking about that. The waves that I was talking about are those kind of injecting kind of disruptive information or fearful information, or preparing you for some global threat. So obviously they've succeeded with the virus, no question. We can see that. It is a global threat. Now, what else can we start to prepare the population for another global threat? And so you see, and also with all of these groups revolting and all this social unrest, this is just the beginning. And don't forget, you guys, I don't know about Europe, certainly not in Europe, but in America, people are armed, you know. And so, but even without being armed, I mean, everybody knows the French Revolution was one of the bloodiest ever, and they didn't even have the type of arms that we have right now. But the point is, you know, this is just the beginning to show that not everybody's in agreement. Not everybody's buying this for whatever reason. And so because of that, you have to kind of be prepared for, the more you inject new fearful information, this bigger story of we're all being threatened by first this virus, now something else, and then another thing that's coming. The financial threat is definitely coming. Then you are going to want to kind of follow a leader or somebody that comes up with a solution for you to keep you protected and safe, which is supposed to be a bigger governmental structure. So you see how it's all kind of working together, going in that direction. So I think I'm going to stop here just to see if there are questions on that, on this kind of agenda and where all this is going. And I talked about this being over a year and a half, even though they will have a vaccine sooner, or they're trying anyway, and whatever they can implement. But still, you know, I still feel like we'll have pockets, like between each wave, we'll have an area where we can still travel and make our way somewhere else, and or do something, you know, to kind of take care of ourselves in between these big waves, you see. And so I feel like this is kind of what is unfolding over the next year and a half. And I don't know about you, but if you recall, when this started, when there was only like one case in America at the time, of course there was more, but it wasn't tested. Nobody was being tested. But in the very, very beginning, I remember they came out with a plan to deal with this crisis. So we're talking about 2-3 months ago, whenever that was. And the first thing they said it's an 18 months plan. So it was at the time when supposedly they didn't know anything about the virus. They were still saying, is it an epidemic or is it a pandemic? It was at that time. So think about that. Why would they lay out that whole 18 months plan if they weren't even sure if it was a pandemic? Of course they knew it was a pandemic. Of course they knew. And so that's the reason why I feel that this is very much organized. But when I say that, again, You know, not everybody within this plan knows everything or is clear on everything. Within a group, you have, of course, the people who know exactly what's going on. They're the one implementing all of this. Then you have the kind of lower level layer that somewhat kind of understands the bigger picture, but they're also not so clear. You know, it's like a need to know basis. And then you have people in government and in certain organizations that truly, and even in the media, that truly believe that, you know, they're doing their best and this is the best thing, you know, to bring a vaccine or whatever. It's good for the people. So that's why when you talk about media, when you talk about government, not everybody who's speaking is actually the evil one, you know, because some of them actually don't really know. And so I'm going to stop here and see if you have some questions. And so another thing also, what's going to happen because of the financial eventually down the road, because you're going to have not just people losing their jobs and stuff, but you're going to have communities, you're going to have states even considering declaring bankruptcy. This is not, others may want to declare independence actually down the road, not right now, but even though some states have already talked about this many times. I know California had talked about that. Texas has always been a lone star, you know, so at the right time, not now, I'm saying this is way down the road, but this is a very strong potential for certain states to declare bankruptcy and or to declare independence. And this has a huge repercussion on you know, the financial system, but also, of course, the political system, needless to say, and, you know, who you belong to, what state you belong to, and what you're going to be able to do. So all of this, again, it sounds so crazy and scary, but to me, this is how you start to bring in the new. You cannot bring in the new if it's this big cluster of corruption, of madness, of a system that does not work for you. It's a system that works for 3 people. You know, the planet Earth is not supposed to be operating like this. Planet Earth government is supposed to be for the people, by the people, and we know that. And it just does not work this way. And to me, what is happening now is in our face so badly that we are having to break down these systems once and for all. So in a strange way, to me, this is very, very, I want to say exciting, but I know there's a lot of fearful factors, and that's why I'm doing these talks, so that we can process this information and know how to navigate it, so that we can come here and do what we came to do, which I'm going to get to next. But let's take some questions and see if I missed something so far about the situation. Oh, wait, you know what? I think I need to put you on. Can you guys hear Michael? I think I need to put you on speaker. Oh, go ahead, Michael.
No problem. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I think they can. Do you guys, can you hear Michael? Go ahead.
All right. And thanks again to everyone watching today from all around the world. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to Caroline Cory's channel, like the videos, and turn on those notifications. I've seen in chat that we have a few people that didn't receive any. But the more subscribers we have and the more people paying attention, YouTube should do the same. So first of all, thanks again. Great show so far, and a lot of great questions in chat that are very relevant to everything that you were saying. So I'll start it off with Nora. She wants to know if you see America splitting into several new countries.
Oh, well, didn't I just answer that question? In fact, I talked about this in my book, The Divine Plan, for those who have read it, for those who are interested, because this is the beginning, as I was talking about the trajectory. This is the beginning of the next 250-year cycle. And I know you're only concerned with the next few years, I get that. But on a planetary level, this is the beginning of that new cycle. And in that new cycle, I talked about it in the book, where certain countries will bankrupt, will collapse the governments, but also other countries that are under the domination of a country will ask for their independence. And within the states, like I was just saying, I totally see certain states splitting up, but not right away again, but definitely starting to function differently, operate differently. And if you start to see a bankruptcy, a state talking about bankruptcy, then you can start to, I mean, I think that's a first sign, because with bankruptcy, it's not just about debts. It's like, you know, I think they will start to find a way to not just bankrupt, but to become independent because or within that bankruptcy. In other words, do I want to bankrupt just to not pay my debts and close all the public parks, and everything that's public becomes owned by my debtors or whatever? You know, that's bankruptcy, just to get out of debt. But do I even want to do that if I have the option to re-establish constitutionally? And of course, you know, whatever the U.S. Constitution says right now about that, I feel that this is going to be rewritten. This is huge, you guys. And so that's what I see is going to happen at some point. So, and I say at some point because it's still being worked out. It's almost like as the government is saying, and all the laws that are going to come up, you know, about vaccine, about this, about you can do this, you can't do that. So all of these laws are affecting how these states are operating and starting to operate and making those decisions. And so that's the reason why it's like we have to see the timing of when these laws become so restrictive and when those states are going to say, okay, it's time. So this is something to watch out for.
Absolutely. Elsa, I hope that answers your question about smaller communities forming within the states.
Yes.
Sue wants to know, what's the deeper reason for wanting to control us? Who do you think is behind it and why?
Oh my God. Yeah, so, you know, honestly, this is a huge question. You know, people need to just read the book, The Divine Plan, because I talk about a much bigger story that started 230,000 years ago. And so this is just one generation after generation of a type of being or types of civilizations that are into controlling others. So humans are considered the juvenile. It's a very, very, very young species. And so if you see children playing and they're innocent and they don't really know what's going on, and you have some ego, you're a power freak kind of person, then you say, well, let me just see what happens. Let me just explore. Let me experiment with this group of kids and see what they would do if I give them what they want, but then they would listen to what I have to say. And so if you do that with a small group of people, which is the beginning of humanity at that time, and then, you know, you start to say, oh, well, this is kind of cool, then I can continue to create generation after generation, and I can stay in control of eventually of that whole planet. Then eventually you create the civilization that we're in right now. So to me, this is just a continuation of that whole kind of pattern of controlling pattern of certain types of civilization who love that. And, you know, it's very funny, like sometimes I look at all these politicians, you know, fighting to be presidents and fighting to be governors or whatever. And of course, there's always some real good ones. So I'm not like bashing everybody. But those who are really, really like doing everything they can to become president or whatever, and they have all these agendas and all these, you know, power for power and control. I mean, like, think about it. It's so bizarre for me. I find this planet very strange. Like, so you end up getting what? You end up being very rich. Okay, great. You end up being powerful in the sense that you can talk to anybody, get what you want from a material point of view. You can get everywhere. You can buy houses. You can buy things, you can do things in your material life, and that's great. But then what are you really getting? It's like, it's so bizarre, because that person eventually is gonna die. You know, I'm sorry. Or even those who are, now this is another conversation, but it's kind of interesting, who think they want to become immortal. So they're doing all this, there's all this kind of technology out there. We'll talk about this too, that makes the body kind of sustain itself for hundreds of years. And so it's almost like a game, you know, so you can sustain yourself in this power, you know, that you've created for yourself with all your buddies, and you can do everything. You can have all the yachts and all the islands that you want and control your slaves. You know, I mean, how fun is that? Like, I don't, to me, anyway, this is my personal thing. I don't find this to be fun. You know, to me, it's when we are in collaboration to create something, it's a lot more exciting. If we both want to do something together, it's a lot more truthful and exciting than me, you know, exerting this power over you mentally, emotionally, technologically. You know, I zap you with all these, like, you know, all these waves or whatever, inject you with stuff, and then I control you, and then you do what I want. It's almost like, you know, it's like you're lying to yourself because you got what you wanted through fakeness and through. So anyway, that's a side note. That's my take on it. So to answer your question again, it's all about few people who are deluded, that feel that this is cool and this is what they want out of this material life. And guess what? At the end of the day, they're going to have to move on like any other material being. And because they're still part of a larger universal consciousness, a universal citizenship, and, you know, whether they like it or not, there is a divine order that is much bigger than everyone and all of them put together. So that's that. And this is what we're doing. And this is the juncture where we are today. And this is where you all, the role that you all have to play exactly at this juncture. That's why this is an incredibly empowering time. We came to do this. We came to witness this. As crazy as it is, we came to say enough is enough. This does not work. And so for the universal balance, it's just not functional for a cosmic structure. And because of that, we have to witness the collapse of what is not working and reinstate. This is where the good news comes in. All of you who have been talking about healing, you know, you are going to be the stars, because the general population is so lost and confused that, you know, they're going to be, some of them are going to be lining up for the vaccines. Don't get me wrong. They're going to think that's the best thing that's going to happen. Tattoo or no tattoo, you know, restriction, no restriction, they're going to want that vaccine. So that's great. But, I mean, that's great for them. If that's what they believe, it's fine. But a lot of people are going to say, no, there's no way I'm doing that. And so those people are going to be very, very lost, very confused, even though the laws are going to force them to do this thing or that thing with all the restriction. Guess who they're going to look for? They're going to look for people like you who have the ability to help them through this, to speak through all of this madness and get them to balance themselves, help them balance their physical body, help them balance their mental state, their whole consciousness. So that's why your work is going to be the most relevant moving forward. So that's where I get to the positive thing, even though I know we're talking about question, but this is your time to forge ahead. If you've been thinking about, you know, your practice or writing or whatever, or helping others, you need to be out there like now. You know, you are going to be needed more than ever before, if that makes sense. Okay, next. Yeah.
It does. And Here's a great question that Sue wants to know. Is there anything we as a more enlightened group can do to facilitate the process in some way, or should we sit back and just watch the show?
No, I just answered your question, Sue. That's exactly what I just said. Whatever your area is, this is the time for you to do it. You have to be out there talking, helping, just put yourself out there. And because everybody's like, the people who normally would shut us down and think, they're not paying attention. They're paying attention to the people who are stopping their agenda, who are like denouncing this and the cabal's doing that and blah, 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 all this like, and government, you're not doing that. You're just saying, hey, I'm an energy healer, like la, 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 so you're kind of under the radar in a way, in the sense, because they're not interested in you. And but I'm telling you, you are going to be more powerful or more needed and more relevant than all of that stuff. A lot of people are going to need your help. And so I'm saying, stop waiting, and this is the time to put yourself out there and do your thing more than ever before. Make sense?
Absolutely. You're answering most of the questions that we have here as we go, which is great. I'm going to shift it over to the UFO declassified videos for a moment. Do you think that the Pentagon's announcement is in order to just funnel a ton of money into support the new Space Force program? What are your thoughts on the reasoning behind this, Caroline?
Yeah, like I was saying, it's definitely for a fear factor. Like, hey, first of all, they've kept denying all of this for years and years. So now they have to shift. They can't all of a sudden say, oh, we need all this money for the Space Force, even though they've already injected a lot of money. They're going to have to feed it to us. I mean, do they think we're stupid? Like, it just boggles my mind how sometimes, like, those people who are doing all of this, they still think that. Now, having said that, a lot of people will just believe whatever they're told and they will follow, and it's okay. But I'm telling you now, I'm noticing even the average person who never looked into any of this being a conspiracy theory or anything, they're questioning everything. It's like, the people who are into it right away see the red flags, but there's a huge part of the population who wasn't quite sure, but now they're questioning. And so I think there's a larger group of humanity that is more awakened than we think. They're not quite sure. I mean, they're not maybe awakened to the, the super high level, but awakened in the sense of, we're not so gullible. We know there's something behind what you're telling us. And this is huge. And so I feel that the whole UFO thing, they had to first transition from denial to, now, well, no, it's true. This is all, we know this technology exists and it's real, and you're not, and UFOs are real. And even the US government and other governments do have that technology in some ways, and they're working with civilization who do have this technology. So they have to transition into the story where if other civilizations, extraterrestrials or otherwise, have that technology, we could be attacked, we could be taken over as a planet. Therefore, we need the budgets and the money and the focus on a space force. It's just so obvious. I mean, don't you think, Michael? I mean, it's like
it seems that way.
Yeah.
After 3 years of saying it wasn't real.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I love what's happening. It's like we're witnessing the government failure and organization and institutions failures at a level, it's so blunt, so this is so positive, because all the paranoia or the ideas that, wait, are they lying to us? Is this real? Why aren't they telling? All of this is now being confirmed. You're getting validation that you're not crazy, that this was all real. And so this is extremely empowering. And so for decades to say, oh, no, it's not, and, there's nothing in the sky, and there's nothing like aliens, and we're not involved. And to all of a sudden, in the middle of this corona major crises, all of a sudden to say, yes, we know UFOs are real and we've been working. I mean, it's just so obvious. I don't know what to say. Anyway, let's keep going. What else?
Well, here's a great question. Alea asks, will there be a good team of extraterrestrial civilizations that would intervene, that would jump past the threat narrative?
Yeah, so guess what? They are already here, but it's like they're not coming out. And so this is another thing, like people talk about this. So if they're helping us, why aren't they just coming out, walking the street? Because look at what's happening. In fact, I think the corona experiment is a great test to see what would happen if we inject a global fear, a threat to the population. And look at what's happening. I feel like humanity is reacting in fear. Of course, maybe not most of you who are listening to this webcast, but the majority of the population is reacting in fear. So this is a great test, because if for a virus they are reacting in this way, and doing this and having this social unrest here and revolting here and blah blah, and so they're starting to see, okay, what if now all of a sudden we talk about extraterrestrials being here, or if an extraterrestrial shows up, you know, so humanity, we think, you know, can take it. They can maybe, but it will still cause fear, and more importantly, disruption and confusion. So that's the reason why I feel that from the human point of view, this has to be orchestrated, planned to keep the control. But from an extraterrestrial point of view, first of all, they're here. They're already are helping and assisting, you know, from behind the veil. They don't have to be here in physical form. But if and as it becomes necessary, we could see some interaction. But I don't think this is for now. And I don't think it's relevant, or it's the way to get us out of this. I feel that you guys, the humans who are awakened enough to see all this and understand what's happening, you are the one leading the way. And I think I saw a question, do we have enough, I know people talk about, what is it, like a minimum number of people or whatever, tipping point or something. Yeah, I feel that it's not the number of people, although that helps as well, but the type of people who are awakened enough to do the work that will forge the way. In other words, that could be just a few thousand people, or a few, 100,000 people around the world, understanding this and out doing this work and out, injecting the positive and the uplifting and the healing and all of that stuff to neutralize, so it's not like because we're 7 billion people that we have to have more than half, 51%. It doesn't work this way. It's the right group that would be the amount that's enough to topple the whole thing over. Does that make sense? And so
it's more of a quality over quantity.
Exactly. So that's why most of you, I recognize you have been working in this with this work. It's not just any meditation, it's not just any frequency, it's the type of work that you've been doing, the way you've been expanding your consciousness, the way you have been projecting your energy, the way you do the healing, that is going to be a lot more powerful, and what is leading the way. I'm telling you, you are the ones that will become more relevant. So in your communities, for example, so eventually if you gravitate towards smaller communities and feel that this is where you belong or what have you, it's almost like, instead of just, again, like this very simplistic, instead of, your people are getting depressed or confused or whatever, instead of calling a regular medical doctor after all this mess, there's going to be more. There's going to be more confusion. Even now, they're telling us the testing doesn't even work. Like the test, there's now false positive and false negative. And if you get tested and then you're negative, you have to get tested again. And so it's like, so even the antibody test doesn't really mean anything because it's not. So what I'm saying is the system is not even efficient. And who do you believe? And so do that for a few more months. And by the time you come out, you know, the person that has some sort of symptom or is struggling with, you know, some emotional problem, whatever, is not going to, you know, go and run to the regular doctor anymore, which is sad in a way because some doctors are amazing, you know, but you are going to become more relevant because you're going to be talking about frequency and energy and vibration and alignment, and that is going to make a lot more sense to them because they're so disillusioned. So that's what I'm saying. The system everything that's surfacing now is showing us how inefficient everything has been, and we've just been paying taxes and working our butt off, you know, to make ends meet or whatever, and just like kind of, you know, following the laws and the rules or whatever, and buying into a system that is so incredibly inefficient. And so this is so important that now your work finally becomes more appreciated and needed. Okay? And what else?
You covered a couple of the other questions that I was saving related to vaccines. I think that it's just essentially another layer of control and confusion.
Yeah. So of course now I speak. I'm trying to see if this thing's sticking. So of course, like a lot of people who are on this call who are more conscious can relate to everything I'm saying probably, and can shift to a positive place. And that's all I'm saying that you need to be doing is make sure that you keep this bigger story and always put it back. What have I come to do at this time? Did I come to just succumb to and just keep saying, oh my God, this is like so bad and I'm lost and confused and I'm scared? To, you know, if I will be forced to take a vaccine, then that's the end of me and whatever. So you are now in fear because you've already decided that there's no way out. Well, there's going to be a way out, but you start, because you are conscious and you keep the bigger picture. I don't think you came here to become a slave. Okay, so you came here exactly at this time to know how to maneuver this. Okay, maybe it's taken a little while because we're still under the trauma, and we feel like it's like a house arrest. It's like they keep extending, and then even after they extend, they're already injecting in us this like doom and gloom, like that it's going to be another wave, it's going to be worse, it's going to be more deadly. And so so as we are witnessing all of this, your work is just to remain positive and keep this bigger picture, so that when the time comes, you will know how to avoid the vaccine. You will know how to find your way to the physical location that is going to work for you no matter what happens. So I talked about this happening for 1.5 years. And then at some point, like I said, there's kind of a period also about a 1.5 years where it gets you think now things are very quiet and, so it gets kind of like that. And I talk about this in the book, where it's almost, this is the time where the entire earth resets itself. It's like, we think now it's a reset. Right now it's a reset on an individual level. So it's like you're going home, you're trying to reset your daily life. So this is what's happening right now. But when that time comes, it feels like the whole planet is like at this 0 point state. And so it's going to feel like very, very quiet. There's going to be a lot of strange emotions because you're kind of mourning the old paradigm, I feel. And so for those of you who do all of a sudden have a surge of depression or any sort of kind of a weird feeling of sadness, that is what's happening. And so because the old paradigm is crumbling, if you will. So there is that going on. But what's really happening is that on a planetary level, the magnetic field, remember how we talked about the pole shifting and all that stuff? This is what it starts to stabilize. It starts to gradually stabilize. The pulse and the breathing of the planet starts to become more regulated. The atmosphere and the, all the way up in space, it becomes much more, it's like the energy field of the planet starts to become more calibrated. And that is incredibly powerful time. So even though on a human physical level, you may be isolated in your, I don't know, your little community somewhere, and there's this kind of maybe an eerie feeling of sadness of kind of this quiet from a human, social point of view, but energetically, like with all of these changes, the energy is going to be divine. And so we need that time, and again, so that whole period where the earth pulse, the whole Schumann resonance, the Schumann resonance is going to finally get adjusted to the perfect pulse of the cosmos. When all of this takes about 1.5 years, and so. So this is amazing. And this also is a time where the new ideas, the new technologies for the free energy is going to start to happen, because you cannot have free energy that work on a planetary level when the Earth itself, the magnetism of the Earth itself is off. Because the free energy is not just based on magnetism, it's based on it's a whole different conversation. I'll do another talk about just that. But the new energy have to do with calibration with the entire space and the grid system and everything else. So that calibration has to happen on a planetary level first before the technology of free energy can emerge and start to kind of take, work. And I'm talking, again, if everything stays exactly on this course, it could be a little bit more pushed this way, a little bit more pushed this way, like I said, because humans are creating. But I'm talking 2026. 2026, like I said, divine, pure, sublime energy will finally emerge, and the technology will follow through. And when the technology of free energy starts to emerge with now that's coherent with the new calibrated planet, now you can have the new economy, new types of economy appear, because the new economy is now based on free energy. So now you're talking about systems that will start to emerge that will support, I'm talking about economy systems, social systems that will start to emerge based on that free energy technology. Do you see how it starts to make sense? You can't now introduce this and make it work. It's impossible. Like there's too much clutter. There's too much garbage, on the planet, and on the human consciousness, on planetary consciousness, on the Earth herself. It's filled with toxic material. So you can't introduce this pure energy that calibrates the entire planet, that gives free energy to every single person in the middle of this toxicity, you see? And so that's the reason why this breaking down of the system is eventually making room, like, let's clear this clutter, garbage, you see? And in the meantime, you are surfacing in between these big bubbles, and then you're giving the Earth that time to recalibrate, and then the free energy creates the new society, you see? So does that make sense? And let me know if I kind of made sense to you, and if you have questions about that.
Most of what you've just said has really tied up a lot of things, a lot of these questions into a nice little bow here regarding the divine plan,
Yeah.
free energy, and people being tuned to it. Here's one more question. Do you think that humanity has done something like this before?
Yeah, great question. Not exactly like this. This has never been done before in this way. And and also, like I said, this paradigm has been happening for 230,000 years. And so this big chunk is being changed. So this has not been, so there's similar stuff that happened on the Earth and on other planets, actually similar, but not exactly like this. And the way it's being implemented, the way it's being shifted into the new paradigm is also very, very, very different and very unique. One of the things, the way this is unique is usually when a planet is quarantined, it's funny because we're all quarantined now, but actually a planet gets quarantined when it starts to behave like I talked about that last time. When you have a cell in your body that starts to freak out, the immune system attacks it, and it kind of like covers it, kind of like isolates it, so your whole body doesn't become, invaded. And so in this way, there is this quarantine that happens around the planet when the planet starts to go crazy and act and start blow up things, nuclear energy all over the place, and imprisoning the inhabitants and stuff like that. So this planet has been quarantined in this way, but the way it's being now freed, so to speak, ending the quarantine, is very, very unique. And so, like I said, when this happened before, the way the universe rebalances back this planet and kind of brings it back into balance with the rest of the galaxy and the universe is most of the time more energetic, meaning through the movement of stars, the movement of you're calibrating at a cosmic level, if you will. And so we look at the sky and we see stars colliding and collapsing, and galaxies collapsing, and black holes doing this and that. And our scientists tell us, oh, it's chaos in the universe. Well, it looks like chaos because we don't know why things are collapsing. But your cells are collapsing all the time. Your cells are dying all the time. And so why is it okay for your cells to die, but it's not okay for the star to die, you see? And so to me, it doesn't make sense. Either there is a universal order, a intelligent design, or there isn't. Why does it apply just to the human body? It's okay to lose the liver cells and the saliva cells and the whatever, but it's not okay for it to operate on the cosmic level. And so it does, because we don't know, because they don't know. And so, but the truth is, it is the cosmic level, the cosmic design that gets reconfigured on an intelligent being level. It's like the macro and the micro are coherent with each other. They're in resonance with each other. So if you're colliding stuff up there, you also can collide stuff down here and vice versa. And so all this to say that when there is a cell or a planet that is misbehaving, the cosmos can collapse things and move things around. And again, I don't want to get into too many technical things, but what happens is that when a planet is positioned differently within the cosmic structure, it now aligns through different pathways. So it's almost like, if you have something in your body and it's stuck, okay? So it's stuck behind your arm or whatever. If you just move it to the proper positioning, all of a sudden, all the meridians starts to flow through it. It receives the oxygen, it receives the nutrients, and off you go, and you're healed. And all you have to do is shift it, just move its positioning. Again, I'm simplifying this, but just to give you an idea. So it used to be that a planet could be just unlocked, shifted, and reconfigured in this new positioning, and all the pathways from source, from the center of the galaxy, starts to pour in, and intelligent life, everything starts to thrive again, just like that. And so that's how it used to be fixed before. But right now, what is happening that is different is, in addition to all of this restructuring and reconfiguring and moving the planet, we're not going to be in the same location as we are. In fact, we have been moving within the galaxy. So in addition to all of this cosmic movement and realignment, there are also, I talked about this in the books for those who are interested, there are specific types of beings that have incarnated on the earth to alter the tipping point. We talked about tipping point. And so specific types of beings you have to be a human to alter the outcome of a human. You have to be an animal to alter the collective consciousness of the animal kingdom. You can influence. So for example, a spirit being like an archangel can influence you, can give you, like, can boost your energy, but he cannot create for you. He cannot create your reality. He cannot think, because the way a human thinks, it's this very specific charge. It's a very specific frequency that comes out of your brain when you think. So it affects everybody that has a human brain, you see. But the archangel does not have the same charge. It's a different charge. It's a different type of being, and he exists in a different spectrum. So he can think all he wants. He can send all the loving energy, everything he wants. He will not affect the outcome of the human collective consciousness. And so that's the reason why we said, okay, so in this particular case, we're going to have some individual incarnate as a human that have specific calibrating power to change the outcome of the human collective consciousness simply by being a human, if that makes sense. And so at this time, there are certain individuals that are around the world in different ways, at a different level, doing different things, but they have a very unique configuration within their brain to do that. And so that brings me back to what I said earlier, Michael. I said it's the quality versus the quantity. And it's not like a better superior, it's just different. It just has the ability to do certain things that a normal human doesn't. And so I could be focusing on one point within the Earth grid, and just by focusing on it, it recalibrates all different kinds of points just like that. Whereas another human has to train, or is just not equipped to do certain things like that. So these beings are here, and that is their work, and some of them know what they're supposed to do and how they're supposed to do it. Now that was a very long explanation, but that was the answer. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I'm going to have one more question we can end the show with. So, Caroline, why do you think then planet Earth is so important, that all of this effort and energy has gone into saving it when we're talking about such a large, infinite cosmos?
Well, again, it's like I always go back to the physical body. Sometimes there's one part, like which is more important, the brain or the heart. It's not that it's more important, or is it your arm, or it doesn't matter. So it's not so much, it's like what role does it play within the body. And so sometimes just losing your pinky finger, you think, oh, it's not so relevant, it's not so important, it's so small, like who cares, right? It's like I can live until I'm 100 without a pinky finger, so it's not a big deal. But if you understand that every part of your body has a very specific and unique vibration that affects the whole, whether you know it or not, the fact that you can survive without it doesn't mean that it is working properly, that you are the fullness of yourself, that you are the fullness of the universe. So the fullness of the universe has to continuously thrive and evolve. So it has to maintain its fullness. Like it cannot, like let's say if I'm a kid and I lose my pinky finger and I grow up, you know, I evolve into an adult. So my whole body is going to evolve, but I'm always going to be missing this pinky finger. And so it's in the same way, the universe within its DNA, within its cosmic structure, like within its fabric, it is based on a fullness, oneness, and thriving the entirety of its being. And so even if there's a tiny little piece missing, it almost cannot evolve without fixing it. So that's what's happening. The role of planet Earth, and also, once again, its positioning. Same thing, maybe not the pinky finger, but sometimes let's talk about the toe. Sometimes the one toe is going, because it's at the edge of your body and you have to press on it, you know, every day that you have to walk. Well, first of all, it hurts. And second, it's keeping you wobbly. Does that make sense? Because the specific, even though it's just a small little finger, it's no big deal, but the positioning of it is contributing to your overall balance and your overall equilibrium. And so because of that, the strategic positioning of planet Earth, being at the edge of the galaxy and actually at the edge of the universe, actually, makes it that it has this strategic position that it's making the whole universe kind of wobbly. And that's the reason why it has to be fixed, and that's the reason why it's getting all this attention. Make sense? So, absolutely. Anything else? Let's see.
I think that's about it for the questions so far. We had so many great ones in chat and a lot of great discussion inside of it as well. So again, thank you everyone that's watching, and please, if you enjoy what you are seeing so far, like the videos and subscribe to the channel. Turn on those notifications so you can stay involved in these live discussions.
Yeah, and for those who are new, go to the website carolinecory.com, where you'll find all this information. And most of what I talked about is in the book, The Divine Plan Beyond Now and Beyond 2250, which is in the on the product page, but also in the class Mastering the Human Mind for those who are new or who are interested. And also, as I said, next on Wednesday, we're going to be talking more specifically about how to manage all of the emotions and the feelings and stuff, whether it's for you or somebody else that is within your family or something like that. So watch out for those Facebook notices and stuff like that to know where to sign up and how to sign up for these mini sessions. And I'll see you back here next week. Thanks so much. Thanks for watching.